Yeah. So Tim Tebow had his press conference. It's the first time in history that an NFL backup quarterback had a 40-minute press conference followed by a 10-minute one-on-one interview with ESPN. Tebow, as usual, said all the right things. Said he's happy to be here. Said he's very thankful for the chance and the Broncos and blah, 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 blah. You know, there were a myriad of tweets. The funniest one was Doug Stewart saying Chris Redman never had an interview. To me, Tim Tebow will be the starting quarterback by the fourth game. It's Mark Sanchez, for Christ's sake. And Tebow knows this.
Yeah, well, Tim Tebow's, look, he's probably a decent guy, and he's not stupid. Say what you want about Tebow. He understands how to deal with press. He's been involved with press a lot. Mm-hmm. So he would be a fool to say anything other than that he supported Sanchez and he was just there to make the team better in every way he could. But he could easily be the starting quarterback at some point during the season. I don't know. I don't know about the fourth game, like you say, but I remember when this first happened, there were all these people who said, well, the fans in New York won't embrace Tebow like the fans in Colorado. Are you insane? Do you not understand what New York fans are like? You know, they're the most fickle and vocal fans in the world, and they don't like Sanchez. Why would they not embrace Tebow?
He's the second. What's the word I'm looking for? He's the second string quarterback for the New York Football Jets. As soon as Sanchez misses a third down pass, they will be screaming for Tim Tebow.
It'll happen before that. Well, first of all, they're screaming for Tebow now. I remember the ESPN did a poll on the day that the trade was announced. This was before they had even talked about the difficulty with whether or not the Jets were going to pay the money the Broncos wanted them to pay. It was the day it was announced. ESPN did an instant poll, and 50% of Jets fans were already wanting him to start. Yeah, this is going to be a media firestorm the whole season. Mark Sanchez does not appear to be the most self-confident guy.
No.
They're definitely going to put Tebow in for 10 to 12 snaps at least. If you're going to run the Wildcat, that's what's going to happen. This is not good for Jets fans at all.
I've heard a lot of people talk about Tebow, going to the Jacksonville Jaguars as his home state, blah, 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 blah. But I think what I ultimately kind of feel is Tebow's not going to get the kind of exposure he wants. New York is a media hub. We all know this. You can get lost in Jacksonville, even if he performs admirably. Listen, if he does what he did in Denver, in New York, he'll become like a global icon almost. Like, we still talk about Joe Namath as if he was a great quarterback all time. He won a Super Bowl. That's it. He's not that good. But everything kind of gets overstated a little bit. Sanchez is in trouble. I don't know what his contract looks like, but I would not be shocked if he isn't benched before the middle point of the season.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me either. And everyone should remember, listen to that press conference. Tebow is very conscious of the importance of what he is doing that is not football. And he talks about how that's more important, how his charitable work is more important, how his life mission is more important. If you want to read my full thoughts on this question, you should go to thepermutation.com. I've got an article back during Tebowmania about how Tebow is participating in his own transformation into a symbol for something larger. New York is a great stage for that. They asked him where he wanted to go during this whole scandal with whether the Jets were really going to pay the money, and it appeared like they had a choice at that point whether they were going to trade him to the Jets or the Jaguars, and Tebow said the Jets, which shows you two things. One is that he understands football. He has a much better chance to win with the Jets than he does with the Jaguars. Absolutely. And secondly, he understands that New York's a bigger stage for him. Mm-hmm. This is not a guy who doesn't know what he's getting into. This is a guy who knows exactly what he's getting into, and he's getting into it at a place that is very, very ready to get Tebowmania. Look at Linsanity. And Lynn only won a few games at the beginning for them. Tebow has a record of taking a bad team and making it good.
Hey, that's a good point. Remind me to talk about Linsanity later.
We'll get to the NBA in a minute. But yeah, this is not, this is a mess for the Jets. It's a mess for Sanchez.
No, this is only a mess for one person.
Sanchez?
Sanchez. When Rex Ryan saw Tebow go 95 yards on his defense in Denver and then scored a game-winning running touchdown, he wants to run the football. This is, if you could think of the perfect place of, let's run the Wildcat, run the football, throw 15 times a game, have a defense that really can be a defense that can carry you. You have that in the New York. No other team is built to run the Wildcat and play that style of football than the Jets. I agree with you 100%. Tebow knows football, I think, a lot better than a lot of people are not giving him credit for. This is a brilliant move for Tebow. And I'm telling you, the Jets will compete for a playoff spot, and the quarterback will be Tim Tebow, who leads them there.
Well, they were going to compete for a playoff spot anyway. Look, this is why I say it's a mess. If they decide Tebow is the starter, then that reduces the mess factor a lot in the short term. In the long term, it'll just depend on how well he does, right? Mm-hmm. But in between now and any time in the future where they make that decision, it's a mess, because they're going to have to sit there and pretend like they're backing Mark Sanchez, and we all know they're not. They're all going to pretend like this is some sort of vote of confidence for Sanchez, and it's not. It's a mess for him, and the longer that maybe he'll flourish. Maybe this pressure will make him better. I don't believe it. If that doesn't happen, then it's a mess for the franchise as long as they're going to pretend to back Sanchez when they're not really backing him.
I think the only hope Sanchez has is to somehow, grow a sack of you-know-what and, respond to this. Because if you can't be an idiot if you're Sanchez and be like, well, this is really going to help the team and I'm going to be a better quarterback. No, dude, they don't want you to be the quarterback. And, Mark Sanchez, listen, if you were picking starting quarterbacks who would be behind Tim Tebow, that list would include Mark Sanchez along with Matt Ryan.
Oh, stop with the Matt Ryan. But at the very least, you could say, look, you've got a much better argument for Sanchez than Ryan. But let me say one more thing before we finish this topic. This is a statistic that Scott Van Pelt first pointed out, or at least that's where I found it the first time. Mm-hmm. Tebow and Sanchez had the same number of rushing touchdowns last year, which is 6. Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to compare the two of them, but it's not like Sanchez wasn't rushing the ball as a quarterback effectively, and that's got to eat at him. I'm going to love watching this because I'm not a fan of the Jets, but don't act like this isn't a problem until they make that change.
I'm going to disagree with that stat because I think it glosses over something. It kind of overrates the 6 touchdowns that Sanchez had, and not really the kind of rushing that Tebow does. Tebow's a better runner. There's no question about that. Of course. So when I hear that kind of a stat, I kind of think to myself, this isn't one of those things where that fits. I think when I look at Mark Sanchez, I don't know anything he does well.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? When I look at Tim Tebow, I know he's going to play for me in the fourth quarter. I know he's going to have a lot of passion. Probably next to Michael Vick, maybe the best Cam Newton, maybe the third best running quarterback in the league. So there's some escapability there. And he's a big boy. He's tough to bring down.
And I can tell you
this for the Jets.
Yeah, and then one other thing he's going to do is throw a lot of incompletions. Sure. Let's not gloss that part over too. Anyway, This is going to be fascinating. The football gods could have done nothing better for us as fans than this kind of thing, because it's going to be just a beautiful mess to watch.
It will be fun. But the reason that